These images capture one of the only gray whales known of in the entire Atlantic Ocean. The last confirmed sighting in these waters was 200 years ago. This lone traveler likely crossed the Northwest Passage from the Pacific because all of its Atlantic kin were hunted to extinction. In the 19th and 20th centuries, humanity waged a brutal war against all cetaceans, more akin to genocide, as millions of whales and their families were slaughtered and harvested like cattle, all to satisfy an unrelenting hunger for whale oil. And to this day, whales remain a great mystery. We still grapple with questions about their biology, ecological impacts, and their capacity for socialization and even consciousness. While only one cetacean species has been driven globally extinct due to human action, a quarter of all other living species of cetaceans are considered threatened. And to this day, some continue to disregard any protections placed on them. Though thankfully, whaling is a dying trade due to rising global disapproval and lack of demand. How did everything even get to this point? How did whales become such coveted targets? And what comes next? For whales and for us. Because when it comes down to it, every story is a human story. To try and answer these questions, we need to fully understand whales. From knowledge gained by cetologists and paleontologists, historians, and, even whalers. Every insight must be gathered to make sure cetaceans, just as any species on this precious planet of ours, survives in the age of humans. If we were to travel back in time 50 million years, we would find ourselves at the early Eocene epoch. During this time, you would find hot tropical and desert climates dominating most of the globe. The Earth is just beginning to throw off a global warming event known as a thermal maximum. You won't find much comfort at the poles either, as palm trees and other tropical flora have their grasp here as well. But our focus is not at the poles, but right at the equator. Specifically in an archipelago region off the coast of modern India and Pakistan, within the expanse of the ancient Tethys Sea, a sea that is the precursor to the Mediterranean and Arabian seas before the plates converged into their modern state. So, where are our cetacean friends? Are they lurking in the depths of the Tethys, perhaps hanging about the shallow coasts of this archipelago? In actuality, whales are walking on land or wading through shallow waters on all four legs. This is called Indohyus, which is Greek for pig of India. While not a cetacean itself, but rather of the family Rhylidae, which is an extinct group of small, deer-like, even-toed ungulates, Indohyus is a close relative or outgroup of cetaceans. Theories vary from it looking something like the chevrotain or perhaps a raccoon. The lack of canines and its ungulate heritage suggest it subsisted on an herbivore diet as well, a far cry from the krill or seal-eating whales of today. But how do we know that little Indohyus is a relative of giants such as Basilosaurus or blue whales? Well, for starters, all mammals have something known as an auditory bulla. This is a small piece of conductive bone within the inner ear, which is used for gathering sound in an environment. But there's also something known as an involucrum. This involucrum serves to protect the bulla and help it focus sound more easily, which is especially crucial in underwater environments where sound can travel a lot more intensely and farther than in air. no animal group now or in the fossil record is known to have an involucrum other than cetaceans, except for Indohyus. But if Indohyus isn't a cetacean, then why should we talk about it? Alongside some actual cetaceans that we will discuss, Indohyus is one of the earliest animals related to whales that we know of. It helps to paint a picture of what whales were like back then, and how they may have transitioned from land to sea. That's the key part to remember. We can only try to understand what the direct ancestors of whales were like, because we simply have lost too much information. We have found hundreds of cetacean species in the fossil record, but still not enough to connect them all, essentially making everyone we know of so far only cousins. This is because fossilization requires extremely specific conditions, and so many creatures just simply don't fossilize, and we may never find bones of those missing links between them. Therefore, we can't draw a straight line from a blue whale to their earliest ancestor based on what we know. It's still useful knowing these names though, because it gives us at least some idea of what those hidden pieces between the earliest ancestor of whales might have been like. Staying in the early Eocene, we can also encounter Pakicetus. This is one of the first true cetaceans that we know of. It was a bit larger than Indohyus, and although not fully aquatic, it probably had the same tendencies of its distant cousin, sticking close to shorelines and rivers, but instead of eating various flora, it would use its sharp canines for hunting fish and other small animals. Pakicetus gives us a clear step into modern whales through their likely carnivorous diet. Staying around the same time, we can also encounter Ambulocetus. This next stage exhibits the first aquatic form of cetaceans. It was likely akin to an otter or sea lion, as it still had strong forelimbs, but now with a thick tail adapted for movement in the water. Affirming our understanding of cetacean evolution from land to sea, we have Maiacetus. A fossilized specimen carried a fetus that was poised to be born head first. This indicates to us that Maiacetus had to have used its still strong limbs to go onto land, as otherwise the infant whale would drown during the birthing process. Modern whales know this, and therefore give birth tail first. Then there is Basilosaurus, undoubtedly one of the most famous due to the extreme prevalence of its fossils throughout the globe, from Louisiana to Pakistan, as well as being identified as the earliest multi-ton whale that we know of. This serpentine titan may have reached lengths nearly equivalent to modern blue whales, and would have hunted other sea giants such as the precursor sharks to Megalodon and even other Basilosauridae. After the Eocene-Oligocene extinction event, many cetacean species were wiped out along with the other 2/3 of all mammals on Earth. What we see in our waters today are descendants of those survivors millions of years ago. Around 35 million years ago, the distinction between baleen, or Mysticete, and toothed, or odontocete whales begins. Mysticetes did not suddenly begin using baleen, but their path started around this time, and infant mysticetes today still develop their tooth vestiges before replacing them with their filter-feeding baleen. Around about 10 million years ago is when finally modern whales begin to take root, and familiar faces are seen in the fossil record, albeit much smaller than their modern counterparts. Whale gigantism began from only around 4.5 million years ago. An insane development when you think about it. It only took 10% of their evolutionary timeline for whales to go from 30 feet to 100 feet in length. Blue whales are definitely a far cry from their Pakicetus days, as they are now well over 10,000 times heavier than their prehistoric wolf-sized cousins. Through their entire breadth of evolutionary history, whales became one of the most intelligent creatures on this planet as well. The encephalization quotient is a measurement of the ratio between body and brain size, and has been used as a way to compare the intelligence of different species, particularly mammals though. Humans, of course, are at the top, with the quotient averaging at about 7.5. Then immediately are oceanic dolphins, at a 5.5, and orcas at 3. For animal comparison, chimps sit only at 2.3. Though the encephalization quotient is just an approximation, it's important to remember that whales have the highest amount of neocortical neurons, second only to humans again, and this is currently thought to be the main reason for higher cognitive function and social capabilities. We can see their intelligence shine through some of their behaviors. Orcas will whisper to each other in echolocating clicks so as not to alert their prey. Sperm whales form clans that have their own ways of hunting, migrating, and communicating in dialects that are vastly different from other clans. Humpbacks coordinate their hunts with complete strangers by forming curtains of bubbles to scare fish into the maws of their new acquaintances. Not to mention the hundreds of other accounts of whale intelligence and cooperation you can find by just looking on YouTube. Honestly, an incredible time to be alive. For us to be breathing the same air as the largest and possibly only other intelligent creatures to ever have existed on this earth. Today, whales are seldom hunted by predators in the wild. Being the massive titans that they are, it would either come as an insurmountable task or just beyond risky to take down a giant whale or even its calf. Not to mention the predatory forms such as the apex orca, with which all their speed, strength, and intelligence forces even the most hardened great whites to stay away from a hunting ground for years if an orca was ever spotted in the vicinity. It has been this way for millions of years, especially with the extinction of Megalodon, which has allowed whales to fill the niche of the underwater leviathan, allowing cetaceans to live mostly untouched, until of course a new predator joined the stage. About 20,000 years ago, near the end of the late glacial, Upper Paleolithic humans formed the ancient Magdalenian cultures, all the way from the Rhine to British Isles. You might already know of the Magdalenians for their cannibalistic and human sacrificial nature, with skull cups and all, but that just shows that these peoples utilized everything for their betterment and survival, and that included whale bones. Much evidence near the biodiverse rich shores about the Bay of Biscay, between Upper Spain and Western France, shows that the Magdalenian tribes harvested bones from stranded whales and crafted them into rudimentary tools and sometimes weapons. It's doubtful any tribes at this early of human prehistory went beyond their shores and hunted whales directly, as seafaring was not really explored yet, but the exposure is there. And it's interesting to think what early people thought of when harvesting and working on these Goliath bones. What lies out there in the great vastness of those unknown and dangerous waters that could leave something like this behind? It didn't take long before humans stopped asking what could have left those bones behind and started answering it for themselves with tooth and spear. Beginning around 9,000 years ago, many coastal sites around the world from Bangladesh to Skara Brae began the practice of hunting small whales such as pilot, beluga, narwhal, and especially porpoises, leaving behind art in the form of petroglyphs, paintings, and even figurines depicting their hunts. They used a series of implements to kill these cetaceans directly, such as barbed harpoons, hooks, and drogues, but the favored method of these peoples was to get in boats and make a lot of noise to scare and drive dolphins and other porpoises to shore to beach them and swiftly kill them. While it can be difficult to understand such killings today, back then these whale killings were a form of necessity. A successful hunt would deliver vast amounts of protein and calorie-rich fat for an entire community that would sustain them for weeks or even months. Especially when you take into consideration how well early cultures utilized every aspect of the carcass. This can be seen at sites such as El Medano in the Atacama Desert, where near the detailed illustrations of their 5th century whale, shark, and seal hunts can be found remnants of harpoons made of whalebone and seashell, rafts made of sea lion pelts, and rope made of whale skin. They didn't just hunt small whales either. Among their marks can be found multi-ton fin whales and right whales. Right whales would not just be the target of those in the Atacama, however. While the whaling industry of the 19th and 20th centuries undoubtedly removed the greatest amount of biomass in Earth's known history, right whales and gray whales were globally hunted to near extinction before whale oil fever even began. Especially concerning the right whale, they were not made to worry about creatures such as us. They keep their habitats close to coastal areas, are one of the slowest swimmers of cetaceans, and when killed, their thick blubber keeps them afloat like oil floating on the surface of water. Looking at cetacean bone sites across Europe, you will find that the right whale's bones are littered across most of them. If you've ever wondered why they are called right whales, it's simply because they are known as the right whales to kill. Large civilizations such as ancient Rome during the Iron Age and the many states of the Middle Ages knew these facts and relished in the abundance of right and gray whales in the waters around their nations. Human hands have been stained with whale blood for a long, long time. Soon it became known as a symbol of wealth, prosperity, and modernity to hunt whales. Control over the whales meant control over the oceans. Leaders such as Tsar Peter, through his grand embassy and desire to bring his country out of the past, realized these truths of his time and therefore would lead his nation on a war path against whales that would ultimately assist in one of the greatest tragedies on this planet. While it is difficult to trace humans' direct impact on whales with 100% certainty due to just the dynamic nature of our planet, I would go so far as to call it delusion to not admit that we have done considerable damage. While early cultures, and even some to this day that still perform small-scale whale hunts, can be excused for their need to survive, we humans often find ourselves taking more and more and more and more. I ask you, what happened to the passenger pigeon, European sturgeon, and northern cod? Thankfully, whales have not experienced such a definitive fate as them. But that is honestly nothing short of a miracle considering what came next. Hey, it's Captain Cosmo. Thanks for watching my video. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the video, letting you know that that was the first part in a two-part series that I'm working on. The next two chapters are going to cover more of the 18th, 19th, and 20th century years of whaling, and also the future of whales and us. And yeah, I never knew any of that about whales until like the last couple months. It wasn't until I got inspired by things like Moby Dick, the movie The Heart of the Sea, and a couple scenes from the show called Outlander where they're talking about the whales. And I asked myself, like, yeah, why the hell are there not that many whales out there right now? Like, if I go out to the beach right now, I'm not gonna just see one out there. And yeah, that led me down this entire rabbit hole, and I just wanted to make a video on it. And I have a bibliography of all the sources used, which includes two books that I really enjoy and highly recommend. The first one is Spying on Whales by Nick Pienson, and the other is Red Leviathan by Ryan Tucker Jones. I'm actually in the middle of that one right now, and it's going to be used a lot in the next video. But yeah, if you ever get the chance to read it on Amazon, or I'm reading it off Spotify using the audiobook version, yeah, really good reads. And this is also the first video that I've put a lot of work in. If you look at any of my other ones, you'll see that they don't really have that much effort put into them. So I've been working on this for quite some time. So I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you did or didn't, please let me know in the comments what you think I could work on for next time. And yeah, just share your thoughts with me. What you think of whenever you watch this video, and yeah, what you might have learned, or what insights that you might have that you'd be willing to share. Please go ahead in the comments and let me know. And yeah, if you want to be notified of the next video whenever it comes out, again, it'll be in like 4 weeks, but yeah, go ahead and please subscribe and turn on that bell notification icon. And yeah, I will see you next time. Live long and prosper, my dudes.